A while back, I showed you the whole idea of off-grid solar, the panel, the battery, and how my people use the sun to run a freezer or a pump or a light without ever tying into the power company. And the question I got more than any other in every comment was the same. Elias, that is fine, but how do I actually hook it together? Which wire goes where? I am afraid I will do it wrong and ruin something or start a fire. So today I am going to sit down with you and show you exactly that, how to wire it. Step by step, slow, in plain words, in the right order, because the order matters more than anything and almost nobody tells you that. By the end of this, you will understand how to connect the panel, the charge controller, the battery, and a small inverter so you can plug in a real household thing. And you will know how to do it safely with the fuses and the switch that keep you and your home out of trouble. My name is Elias Yoda. I am Amish, I farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and I will tell you plainly at the start, electricity deserves respect. It is a useful servant and a dangerous master. I am going to show you the simple, safe way, and I am going to stop and warn you at every place where a careless hand gets into trouble. This is not hard. A careful person of ordinary sense can do this in an afternoon. But you do it carefully, and you do it in order. Stay with me. First, let me remind you of the 4 pieces, because each one has one job, and once you know the jobs, the wiring makes sense instead of being a mystery. The panel catches the sun and makes electricity. That is its only job. But the electricity it makes is uneven, strong in bright sun, weak in cloud, changing all day long. That uneven power is not fit to feed straight into a battery. It would harm it. So the charge controller is the second piece. It is a small box that sits between the panel and the battery, and its job is to take that uneven power from the panel and tame it, turn it into the steady, correct flow the battery can safely drink. Think of it as the steady hand on the tap. Never, ever wire a panel straight to a battery without it. That is the first rule. The battery is the third piece, and it is the true heart of the whole thing. The battery is where the sun gets stored. Here's a thing most folks get backwards. When you run something off solar, you are really running it off the battery. The panel's job is just to keep the battery filled. The battery does the actual work, day and night, sun or no sun. The panel is the helper. The battery is the heart. And the fourth piece, the one we are adding today, is the inverter. The battery holds its power in one form, what they call direct current, DC, the same kind that is in a buggy battery or a car battery. But the things in your house, a normal lamp, a fan, a freezer, run on the other kind, the kind that comes from a wall socket, alternating current, AC. The inverter is the box that changes the battery's DC power into the household AC power your appliance needs. Small inverter, a few dollars, and now you can plug in a normal thing. Panel catches it. Controller tames it. Battery stores it. Inverter changes it for the house. 4 pieces, 4 jobs. Hold those in your mind, and the rest is just connecting them in the right order. Now, before we touch a single wire, let me lay out the 2 safety things you need beside those 4 pieces, because I will not show you a hookup without them. The first is fuses. A fuse is a little safety link, a cheap part that sits in the wire and is built to burn out and break the circuit if too much electricity ever tries to rush through, like in a short circuit. Without a fuse, a short can melt your wires, ruin your costly battery, or start a fire. With a fuse, the fuse quietly dies instead, and you just replace a $1 part. You want a fuse on the line between the battery and the charge controller, and another on the line between the battery and the inverter. The battery is where the great push of power lives, so you guard every wire that leaves it. The second is a switch, an off switch on the lines, so you can shut the power off when you need to work on it or in an emergency. Simple and worth having. And here is the one warning I want burned into your mind before you start. Never let anything metal touch across the 2 battery terminals at once. Not a wrench, not a wire, not a screwdriver, not your ring. the positive post and the negative post. If you bridge them with anything metal, you get a violent spark, a dead short, and you can hurt yourself badly and ruin the battery in an instant. So, take off your rings and watch before you work near a battery. When you use a wrench on one terminal, be careful the other end of that wrench does not swing over and touch the other post. Work one terminal at a time, mindful, unhurried. That single habit keeps you safe. Now here is the heart of the whole lesson, the thing the fellow who taught me hammered on, the thing almost nobody tells beginners. The order you connect things in matters, and you always start with the battery and the charge controller, not the panel. Let me say why, because once you understand it, you will never forget it. The charge controller is a little thinking box. When you first power it up, it looks at the battery to learn what kind of battery it is dealing with, how much power it holds, what it needs. So it must meet the battery first, before anything else, so it can set itself right. If you hook the panel up first, the controller gets a wild jolt of sun power before it has met the battery, and it can confuse it or harm it. So the order, every time, is this: battery to charge controller first, then panel to charge controller, then the load, the inverter, last. And when you take it all apart, you go in reverse. Unplug the load, then the panel, then the battery, last. Build from the battery out, tear down from the load back. Remember that and you are halfway to doing this right. So let us walk through it, slow, in that order. Step 1. Battery to charge controller. Take 2 wires. There will be a positive, usually red, and a negative, usually black. Look at your charge controller and you will see it kindly has a little picture of a battery printed right on it, marking the 2 battery terminals, a positive and a negative. The makers did that on purpose to help you. You connect the battery's positive to the controller's positive, the one by the battery picture, and the battery's negative to the controller's negative. Positive to positive, negative to negative, always, every connection in this whole system, like to like. And here is where your fuse goes. On that positive wire between the battery and the controller, you put your fuse, close to the battery. Some folks use a little fuse that clips right onto the battery post and gives you a new place to connect to, handy and tidy. When you make that last connection and the controller meets the battery, the little screen or light on the controller will wake up and show you the battery's voltage, something like 12 or 13. That is the controller saying, "I see the battery, I know what I am working with." Good. The heart is connected to its steady hand. Step 2. Panel to charge controller. Now, and only now, the panel. The controller will have another spot marked with a little picture of a sun or a panel. That is where the panel's 2 wires go. Same rule, positive to positive, negative to negative. The panel's wires usually end in a particular weatherproof plug they call an MC4 connector, a male and a female that only go together one way, so you cannot easily cross them up, which is a mercy. You may need a short adapter wire that has that plug on one end and a bare wire on the other to go into the controller. They sell those ready-made. Get the ready-made ones to start. Now here is a careful word, because the source I learned the safe way from is right about this. A panel sitting in bright sun is live. It is making power the moment light hits it. So when you connect the panel, it is wise to either do it in low light or cover the panel with a cloth or a board while you make the connection, so it is not pushing power while your hands are at the wires. Some put a switch on the panel line so they can connect it switched off and then flip it on. Once the panel is connected and live, you will see on the controller's screen a little arrow showing power flowing from the sun into the battery. That arrow lighting up is the whole thing working, the sun filling the heart. Step 3. The inverter, and this one is different, so listen close. Here is the part people get wrong, and getting it wrong can ruin an inverter. The inverter does not connect to the charge controller. The inverter connects straight to the battery. Why? Because when you switch on a real appliance, a freezer, a pump, anything with a motor, it gives a big, hard pull of power in the first instant it starts, a surge. That surge is more than the little charge controller can pass through. But the battery, the heart, has the muscle to give that surge easily. So the inverter draws straight from the battery where the muscle is, not through the controller. So you run a good thick pair of wires, and they must be thick because the inverter pulls hard, from the battery's positive and negative straight to the inverter's positive and negative. Positive to positive, negative to negative, same as always. And on that positive wire close to the battery, another fuse, because again, any wire leaving the battery gets a fuse. Keep these inverter wires short and thick. That is where the most power flows in the whole system. Now you plug your appliance into the inverter just like plugging into a wall, and it runs off the battery, that the panel keeps full, that the sun fills for free. That is the whole hookup. Battery to controller, panel to controller, inverter to battery, fuse on every line off the battery, a switch to shut it down, and never bridge the battery posts. An afternoon's careful work. Now, I owe you some honest words about doing this right, because a hookup that works and a hookup that is safe and lasts are not always the same, and I will not show you only the easy half. First, on wire size. The wires must be thick enough for the power they carry, especially the battery to inverter wires, which carry the most. A wire too thin for its load gets hot, and hot wires are how fires start. The instructions with your parts, or a simple wire size chart, will tell you the right thickness for your length and load. Do not guess thin to save a few pennies. This is one place to be generous. Second, on matching the parts to each other. Look on the back of your panel for the little plate of numbers, its voltage and its amperage. Make sure those do not exceed what your charge controller is built to take in. And make sure your controller does not push more into the battery than the battery is rated to take. For a small starter system with a small panel and a good battery, this usually takes care of itself. But for anything bigger, you check the numbers. They are easy to find, printed right on each part. Third, on the inverter's size. A small inverter runs small things: lights, a fan, charging tools. To run a freezer or anything with a motor, the inverter must be rated big enough not just for the appliance's normal draw, but for that startup surge I mentioned. Read the appliance's needs and get an inverter with room to spare. An inverter too small will strain and quit. And fourth, the honest limit I always give you. This kind of simple setup runs specific things: lights, a freezer, a pump, tools, charging. It is not for making heat or running an air conditioner. Those eat far more power than a modest setup can give, as I have told you before. Know what it is for, build it for that, and it will serve you faithfully for years. If you are ever unsure, and there is no shame in it, there are folks who do this for a living, and an hour of a knowledgeable person looking over your plan is cheap insurance. I would rather tell you to ask than have you guess on something that can burn. Now I want to take a moment, because this is the part that matters, and it is bigger than wires. There is a reason they make this sound complicated. There is a reason the words pile up: charge controller, inverter, voltage, amperage, alternating current. until a plain person feels it is beyond him and he had better hire it all out or just stay on the grid where someone else handles it. But you have just seen the truth. It is 4 boxes and a handful of wires connected like to like in a simple order. A careful person can understand the whole of it in an afternoon. There is no magic in it, and there is no priesthood that alone is allowed to touch it. That confusion is not an accident, and it is not quite a conspiracy either. It is just that there is no money in telling a man he can do a thing himself. There is money in the monthly bill, money in the costly installation, money in keeping you feeling that power is a mystery only the experts may handle. The moment you understand these 4 boxes, you stop being a customer who must pay whatever is asked and become a man who can build and fix his own light. That is a kind of freedom, and freedom has never been good for someone's monthly billing. My people have always believed that a man should understand the tools that keep him alive, be able to build them, fix them, and not be helpless when they fail. It is the same reason we keep the old skills. A fellow who knows how his own power is made and wired is not at anyone's mercy when the storm comes and the grid goes dark. He simply walks out, checks his battery, and goes on with his evening by his own light. That is the whole point of learning it with your own hands. So here is what I want you to do. Start with the small, safe version, the way the patient teachers all say. Just the 3 core pieces first: battery, controller, panel. And get that working and charging before you ever add the inverter. Hook the battery to the controller. Watch the screen wake up. Add the panel. Watch the little arrow show the sun flowing in. Live with that a while. Understand it. Then, when that makes sense to you, add the inverter straight to the battery with its fuse and thick wires and plug in your first real thing. Take it 1 box at a time, exactly as you would learn any skill. The man who tries to understand all of it at once gets flooded and gives up. The man who learns 1 connection at a time has it for life. Get your fuses. Get a switch. Mind the battery posts. Use thick enough wire and go slow. Tell me in the comments below, are you building your first solar setup, and what is the first thing you want to run off it? The lights, a freezer, a pump, your tools? And if you have already built one, tell the beginners the one thing you wish you had known starting out. I read every single one, and the help you all give each other in those comments is the best part of this whole thing. Next time, since you now know how to wire it, I am going to show you how to figure the size, how to know how big a panel and how big a battery you need for the things you actually want to run, so you neither waste money on too much nor come up short with too little. It is the natural next step now that you can hook it together. Until then, go slow, mind the order, respect the battery, and remember, the people who built this country with their hands knew things we are only just starting to remember.